Industry and medical device regulators from around the world gathered in Washington, D.C. last week for the 2016 Transcatheter Cardiovascular Therapeutics Conference. A major topic of discussion at the conference was the European Union's new regulations that would drastically change the current landscape. Alan Fraser, chair of the Committee on Regulatory Affairs of the European Society of Cardiology, joined FDA's Robert Califf and Jeff Shurn, among others, to talk about the changes and how they stack up against what is happening in the U.S.
I think it's not too much of an exaggeration to say that in Europe we are on the dawn of a new era regarding medical device assessment, but it's going to pose a very large challenge for our colleagues in the regulatory agencies because of their personnel and funding and the integration between all these different bodies and national systems, and also big challenges for us as physicians to ensure that we seek the evidence, we assess it, we contribute to it, and particularly now we also, perhaps as a routine requirement, take part in new systems for post-market surveillance.
Industry has often complained about how products are able to get on the market in Europe faster, but a key point CDRH Director Jeff Shurn often makes is FDA is not in competition with other regulators. And as Fraser noted, the speed to market has sometimes come at the expense of patient safety.
But I think more interestingly, and this is the first time we have ever seen this sort of evidence conducted in a very rigorous and systematic way, there was evidence that devices first approved in Europe rather than first approved in the US were associated, that's with a hazard ratio of 2.9, with an increased incidence of recalls or safety alerts. And also of concern to all of us, both in North America and in Europe, only 49% of pivotal trials had been published, and overall only 37% of these devices had clinical studies in the scientific literature.
Greg Stone, a noted cardiologist and researcher at Columbia University, who is also a co-director at the Cardiovascular Research Foundation, which organized TCT, said while it's true that researchers in the U.S. are often jealous of their European counterparts, he is personally comfortable with how FDA conducts business, but suggested some improvements.
That being said, I think there are going to be challenges in both systems. I would like to see, for example, in the United States, that we somewhat further lower the bar, that important, innovative new devices and possibly drugs get on the market somewhat sooner. On the other hand, I'd like to see more rigorous post-market surveillance and perhaps the FDA legislatively to have even more teeth, so that if problems do arise after FDA approval, that there could be action taken with, again, a lower bar. In Europe, my great concerns are going to be, as you put more regulation in place, I will say it is very expensive to develop the level of kind of evidence that's required by the FDA to get devices approved. And there's such a difference right now in reimbursement for many medical products between the United States and Europe. Will that be able to be supported in the European system?
For MedTech Insight, this is Firdaus Al-Farouk.